How's it going, YouTube? Today I'm going to be doing a full teardown of an 11 Pro. I'm going to be basically gutting the entire phone and then transferring everything into a new housing. Generally, there are a couple of reasons you'd be doing this. The first is if the back glass is cracked. You can opt for the laser method or just the glass only. There are many reasons why you may or may not want to do that. I've already made a quick video about it, so I'm going to leave a little card up here, but it's prohibitively expensive. You need a laser machine, and if you don't know what you're doing, you very easily can irreparably damage the phone. I mean, you just as easily could do that here, but watch this video, and I will do everything I can to help you not irreparably destroy the phone. So when it comes to a housing replacement, sorry for the long intro, you can do this one of a couple of ways. The full teardown, which is what I'm doing, or if you watch part of this or all the way through and say, holy crap, I want nothing to do with that, go on eBay or try to find a housing. This is obviously not an 11 Pro, but sometimes you can find housings with all the small parts already installed, because I mean literally we need to take out every screw, every component, every bracket, every flex cable. So yeah, this will cut the repair down time by about half, but this is what we're doing today. If there's anything that I missed, anything that I didn't go over with, leave a comment down below, and I will. I'm usually pretty good at getting back to you. On that. I've already sort of opened up the screen. I've already started with this. You got to have your magnetic mat. You got to have your magnetic mat. But yeah, I bought this phone so I could flip. At some point, I'm going to get around to making a video showing you how to do that. But generally, what you're probably going to have to do is just heat up the frame with either a hairdryer or a heat gun of some sort. And do basically what I did. You do obviously want to be careful of your flex cables here. The last thing you want to do is sever one of them. And then we have quite a few plates. So I'm going to speed some of this footage up. But the first thing that you want to disconnect is your battery. So just because the phone is off, there is still electricity running through your board. So as a safety measure, we're going to disconnect our battery first. Then we can disconnect basically everything else. So battery connector is here. And then you have sort of, if you're using the chisel end, you should be good. But there's a little sort of shelf slash safe space. As long as you really don't need too much force. We're going to take our screen, set it aside. Now, I usually start with removing the battery, then the charge port, and then basically everything else. But you can honestly do this in whatever way you feel. So for our front-facing and rear-facing camera, we want to, this is a lengthy repair, the last thing that you want to do. Some people will do this, like overnight, because it might take you a lot longer than me. So I'm going to highly suggest that you put these in some little baggies. For those of you who don't know, if your front-facing camera gets dust or debris, I mean, it's basically not replaceable, or if you do replace it, you end up losing Face ID functionality. So you do want to take care of these. Same thing, use the chisel end. Now for the battery, we have a couple of pull tabs right about here, here, and then another one here, which you need to get by lifting up our charge port. So we're going to remove a couple of things, which will help it. Well, it'll be easier to remove the battery once these are out of the way. So now we can get to this tab and this tab. Change up my tweezers. So I like to just sort of get a hold on it, and then I'll come in, I'll apply a couple of drops on top and below. So you'll see in just a sec, but this and the tab at the top tear, and I end up basically having to resort to what some of you might have to do. So if this happens, keep watching. Don't fear, Spencer is here. Okay, this is lovely. Well, I'm gonna change it up. So if you can tell it's starting to tear, sometimes you just literally just add more alcohol. It helps take the bite. And this one's going to be difficult. So before giving up and giving in, I'm going to try to remove this third. Okay, so that's good. I was able to get at least one. Now, so for the rest of you that may inevitably be in this scenario, I'm going to start up top, but basically you just want to apply some alcohol. We're going to apply our wedge. The general approach is insert the wedge a little bit, not too much. You don't need to use too much force. Then you can come in, apply a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, and then just keep, as you can see, twisting like I am, and you'll see it pop in just a sec. Apply some more. All right, so now we got past the top, but apply some alcohol. So we already have it lifted up. We're just going to wiggle it back and forth. And you really didn't need to put in much effort. So some tabs, they break down over time, and then this is what happens. So we're going to take our battery, set it aside. We're going to start removing our charging port, or the rest of the components from the charging port. There are a couple, like we have a tri-wing here, we have another one here, so don't forget about those. Now this bracket has a little hook right here, but if you just push down and then to the right. So I try to spend more time on the reassembly portion of the video than the disassembly. Let me know if that's helpful or not. That's our loudspeaker. So from here, I just got to warm up the back a little bit, just to remove or to release some of the adhesive. Yeah, so there's some adhesive about right here, some here, not too much. And that's our port. So next, you don't have to do this. This is a huge pain. And check to see if sometimes housings do come with these, sometimes they don't. But we need to transfer our speaker mesh. Then the actual speaker mesh, these are, I guess, whatever, spacers. But I'm going to warm up the bottom of the phone. I'm going to take our curved tweezers, and then out come our speaker mesh. Now, these little dudes are very light, and you can sneeze or breathe wrong, and they'll just go missing. So I like to install these and just get them off of the board. There is an orientation. Sorry, I should have mentioned that, but there is an orientation. So the taller end faces inside, the shorter end, I don't know if you can see that, faces outside. So one of the downsides to doing a detailed full teardown is it just takes forever. So I apologize if this is, I don't know, if I'm getting too into the weeds, but I don't know, this is kind of the whole point I created my channel, is just there were many times where I would be looking for a repair and there wasn't enough info, so I hope I am giving that to you. If I am, smash the like button. If I'm not, smash the dislike button. So now, that's it. We can set this aside. So these are the brackets that hold the screen to the frame. All 3 brackets are the same size. All 6 screws are the same size. So if you mix one up, no biggie. So now the bottom is done. We can move along to removing our board, which just has 1, 2, 3 standoff screws and then these 2 flex cables. You can sort of fold these up out of the way. We need to remove our SIM tray. And then there's a little pin, which you'll see right here. Just sort of stick that in so we can lift our board up and out of the way. Now our SIM pin, if you forget this, it's not the end of the world. You just need to have a longer SIM ejector tool, but let's not forget it. So there, we got it in there. Next we have a couple of different components up top. So I'm going to speed ramp all this just because it's time consuming.
So that's all the more reason why I wouldn't want to.
So next we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Phillips. So now we have to heat up. We have quite a few flexes that we need to remove. Wireless charging coil, these 2 antennas, some more antennas, the flash. So we're just going to start warming up. I'm going to take off the wireless charging coil first. So we're just going to heat right here. So be careful of our side / power button flex. They are adhered. Then have this one. If something is fighting you, you can just blast it with a little bit of heat. Blown away at this. This is the quality that you can expect from most repair shops. They did not even take off the adhesive. So this flex is connected. There's a little bit of, so we're going to have to hit the rear mic. The flash comes out pretty easily, but then you still have some of the flex about right here. So yeah, just be careful. So you can come in with your tweezers. And then your spudger. There's that. Next we have, basically this is just one flex. So usually I'll come underneath here. It is connected over here. So we need to, so there's a little sort of area that I'll just pry out. I'll lift it out that way. And then come under here. If you need to apply some heat, that's totally fine. Make sure that both of your screws up here are removed. Next, we have pretty much the last thing we got to do is our button is basically in 3 pieces. We have this little hanger, which I just rip off. This is one of the few things I will not reinstall. I've done, I mean, literally thousands of these, and I've never had any issues. I don't know what its purpose is. If somebody does, comment below. Now, our button, as you'll see. Alright, so basically there is a press your button in, and then you'll see it rotates at a 90-degree angle. You just pull those out and take your button, they pop right out. Do the same thing over here. Now, it's not a bad idea to clean these buttons off. Sometimes if they're like really sticky, either because they have a lot of dust, or sticky because they have like literal, I don't know, soft drink or juice or whatever, sometimes that gets in here and then the button doesn't want to work very well. So while you're in there, these are fine. I'm just being OCD. And now it's time to put everything back in. So push your button in, and we have our little prongs. You'll hear a clip, and then you just fold it over. Back the way it came in. So here we go. And those are good. Oh, forgot one thing. So we need to heat up, so that way we can remove this little plastic, I don't know, footing, whatever you want to call it. Comment below. What would you call it? So sometimes, but not always. In this case, it did, but there is our little mesh, microphone mesh, which is what I'm holding on to right now, which fits in right here. Sometimes you just got to poke that out from the other side. So just make sure you don't forget that. I've literally done this and then went to trade a phone into Apple one time, and I totally forgot to put in the mesh. And the guy looked at it and he said, something's funny, and then he ended up not taking it as a trade-in. It was really annoying. I had to undo all my work, put a mesh, and go back to a different Apple store, and then they ended up taking it. So, yeah, don't do that. Now, in no particular order, just got to start putting our screws back in. Now, I'll just take a moment and show you exactly why you need a magnetic mat. I'm probably going to put a little bit more effort into, a little more commentary into the reinstall process, because that's usually where things go wrong. We have this little dude. I don't know what it does. I just put it back. All right, next we have this little majigger. There is an orientation. Next, we have our flash. So, just like that. Alright, so apparently I messed up. Take that out. And then apparently, then put this in. Put your mic in place. We have this little bit of foam. One and two tri-wings. So there's a little slot about right here that this little bracket goes into, and then you should be able to see, and it's our tri-wing. Should be thin and flat. Alright, then we have our Phillips right here. Then we can put our tri-wing in that little majigger back there. And we can drop two Phillips. So always make sure, same thing with these buttons, make sure that it clicks properly. Just tips, sometimes aftermarket housings are a bit finicky. The posts are too tall or too short or something like that. If it's too tight, sometimes what I'll do is I will literally undo this and then I will bend, basically bend it out, or I'll bend it like out this way, or sometimes I gotta bend it in. That's just what you gotta do. This is the downside of Apple not really selling their parts. And then we can proceed with our wireless charging coil. So I'm going to lay some double-sided tape down. I'm also going to mention now is a good time to clean off your mute switch. Sometimes these basically won't work because they're just so clogged, and the switch works fine. You just need to clean it off. So take a Q-tip. So before I tighten all of these, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once it all is sort of aligned properly, then I'll go and tighten them. So it looks like the mute switch is sticking out. It has full movement. But my volume up button doesn't work, so I'm gonna do some investigating. Yeah, so this is a perfectly good example where I think it's just too tight, so I'm gonna bend this out a little bit. Or the other thing, if you have this, is I'm going to trim a piece off and put a little disc, put a little spacer in right here. Holy crap, it works! Alright, so the rest of them are good. Now I can lift up here, pull off my adhesive. We want to align this with this little, whatever, indent right there. Now I can drop my board in. And I like to drop my SIM tray in, so it'll hold it in place. So the flex on the upper left was a fraction of a millimeter off, so I needed to loosen all 3 standoffs, then connect the flex, and then retighten them. Put everything back in. Now the first thing that I like to align is my charging port. Usually there is a little sort of, I don't know, there's a lip right on the sort of inside of the charging port, and that's supposed to go in, it's supposed to line up at the base. There we go. From there, I'll put in my 2 screws, and then I'm going to plug in the charging port just to make sure it clips in properly. And you should hear it snap. It should have full movement, or should have... So if it doesn't, usually what I'll do is I will loosen both of the screws. So this fits fine, but if it doesn't, I'll loosen, then I'll plug it in, and then I'll tighten them. And a lot of the times, you know, once the charging port is in there naturally, you know, then you can tighten it and it'll sort of fit properly. Usually you don't have to do that. So yeah, in no particular order. So I'm going to call out some of these only because it's not immediately apparent. But we have a tri-wing here, and then our tri-wing here and here. Example just likes to be confusing. And then here's where I forget. So then I will bring in this. Okay, so tri-wing goes here. Tri-wing goes here. And we have a couple of standoffs. So you might need to loosen this one. There we go. Then we can come back and tighten that one. Alright, what next? It's the same way this came off, goes back on, or not the same way, obviously the opposite way, but this hook sort of press down and then slide to the left, and then 1 Phillips right there. Next we have our Taptic and our loudspeaker. Phillips. Phillips. Standoff. So it goes tri-wing, and there's a longer tri-wing, and then the standoff goes there. If you want to, you can lay some adhesive down. I don't think it's necessary, because once you lay your battery down, it's going to hold this in place. So I'm going to lay my battery in, then I'm going to connect my charge port. Alright, it'll look something like this. So you peel off one. You can do this in either order, but usually I will do the top side first. I like to press down if there are any sort of spots that are lifting up. But you want this black line to peak just outside of the battery, which should do exactly the same at the bottom. And we can come in with our spudger. fold that tab, this tab. So before you just go laying your battery in, at least this is what I do. So we have our charging port. Try to connect your flex. There we go. So we have sort of full movement. Then before laying down your battery, try to snap your... connect your battery. And this is purely for just the proper reach. So basically what you want is, you just want to know that when you lay it in, the flex is going to be able to reach here and here. Not so much with this model, but on other models, like the XR and the 11 are a great example of this. If you put it too high or too low, sometimes it's just annoying, and then you need to undo it because the flex doesn't have a proper reach. Once that's done, we disconnect our flex, because we're about to start connecting some stuff. The last thing we want to do is have our battery connected. So next I have my Face ID and rear and front facing cameras. So I always forget, but there is an order. Give me just a sec. I'm almost positive we do, our rear camera is first and then our front facing camera. So my housing has these little stickers so that it keeps the inside of the lens clear. There, that's good. Now I can proceed with my front camera. There is a... Nope, I'm tripping. Alright, there we go. So, this piece right here goes in first, then our camera. I'm sorry, no, our retaining bracket. Then our screws. All right, last but not least, we just got to put on our screen. But before we do that, we're going to install a perimeter gasket. So, same thing with batteries. It's not a bad idea to get an extra one of these. So I try to line it up at the bottom. Make sure it's aligned as best as you can at the bottom, because it's off. If it's off by a little bit here, it's going to be off by quite a bit further. And then I try to guide it along one side or the other. Then I'll smooth it out with my spudger. If you can get them in a 3-layer, it's nice, because The last layer you can pull off right before you install your screen, just so your flexes or nothing gets stuck to the gasket. Yeah, sometimes it can be annoying when something gets stuck to it and then you lift it up and then the whole gasket comes up, so it's nice you just put this on at the last moment. So, before we connect our screen, make sure your battery is disconnected. There we go. So I'm going to test functionality before I put the rest of my plates and screws in. Alright, so in no particular order, I'll test volume down, up, the mute switch. I can feel it vibrate, it has full movement, the side button. Then I'll test the flashlight, then I'll test the camera. So all 3 and 4, and then I actually put it into portrait mode. And all those check out. Next I'm going to test, there are a couple of microphones on the device. So we have our front-facing microphone, rear-facing, and lower. Test, 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 test. Now if you have a film over your screen, it might sound a bit funky, so you can just sort of lift it up. Test, 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 test.
Test, test, test.
So that sounds decent.
Test, test, test,
That sounds
test.
decent.
Lift it up.
And then I'm going to come back to, not back to, I'm going to come to voice memos. Test, 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 test.
Test, 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 test.
So if it sounds staticky, it's totally possible that your microphone is damaged. Generally, you want to just disconnect and reconnect the flex before going through all the effort to remove it. If that still doesn't work, so obviously disconnect the battery, then disconnect the charging flex, then reconnect it, or whatever issue you happen to have. Then boot it up, then test it again. With whatever the issue is. If you're having issues, I'll do my best. Sometimes it's difficult, in comments. It's so much easier to just talk on the phone. But leave a comment, be as descriptive as possible. Also leave a timestamp if there's something you have a question about. Oftentimes people will leave a comment and say, hey, at this, and, I made the video at this point maybe 6 months ago. I don't remember what. So, yeah, just be as specific as possible. And then I'll test the wireless charger. Wireless charger works. Obviously, my charger works. My loudspeaker works. And then I like to test Face ID. So I need to properly seat the screen, and my gasket is getting in the way, so I'll do that afterwards. Everything else seems to be fine, so I'm just going to call this a success. Honestly, you really don't need me for much more. A couple of things I will mention. Just make sure that on more than one occasion I have, screws will fly all over the places, and one will get stuck to the perimeter gasket or the Taptic engine or the loudspeaker or the ear speaker. And if you don't catch it, you can damage the screen when you go to close everything up. So just make sure you don't have any of that. So we can now remove our gasket. So be careful, because sometimes if it doesn't adhere properly, or if it's not a very good gasket, the gasket will come off of the frame. So if that happens, just try to smooth it out with your spudger at the same time. This one was fine. So then we're going to come seat the top. Crunch, crunch. I need to find 2 pentalobes for this. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.